Welcome to Becoming Virtuosa, the podcast with Dr. Susan Crockett. You are listening to episode number 29, How to Allow Urges, an interview with fellow certified life coach, Penny Gambill. This episode is dedicated to Penny's husband, Damien, for always being so stinking supportive. Gotta love that, right? It's awesome.
Welcome to Becoming Virtuosa, where women learn to love their lives. Do you find yourself frustrated by society's expectations? Looking for practical advice on how to discover your talents and level up your life? You found the right place. Here's your host, U.S. News top doctor, robotic surgeon, and certified life coach, Dr. Susan Crockett.
Hello, my virtuosos. Hello, my virtuosos in training. We are working on becoming the best version of ourselves, our virtuosa selves. And I am your host, Dr. Susan Crockett. You can call me Sue because we're having girl talk on here, and I'm so happy to be talking with you today. This last week or so, I've really been working on paying attention to taking care of myself, like asking myself on a daily basis, what's the best thing I can do in this moment to take care of me? And ironically, what it's done is made me really become aware of my urges and desires. And this weekend, I was walking around the house and Saturday morning, and I was like, I kept getting this urge to go work out, like to put on my tennis shoes and go for a run. And it's not something I really like to do. And it kept nagging at me. And I all of a sudden, I realized it was an urge, kind of like the urge to have Cheetos. And I wondered to myself, I'm like, why is it so easy to give into the urge for the Cheetos and yet so difficult for me to give into the urge to go exercise? So kind of threw my hands up in the air, metaphorically at least. And I went and put on my shoes and had a wonderful run. And I'm feeling so good today. It's a great day. So I am excited to do this interview, to bring this interview to you. It's a wonderful talk with Penny Gambill. She is a stop over drinking coach. She's going to talk today about how to allow urges and not give into them. So not giving into the ones that you don't want, like the opposite of giving into the one that says go exercise. So she comes from an interesting background. She was in a place where she was having difficulty drinking, and she really got to a place where she was told that she either had to admit that she had a problem and was an alcoholic, or that she was normal and could drink like everybody else. And what she found and what she realized is that there are other options available, and you can learn how to say no to a drink and not feel deprived. You don't have to feel terrible about that, and you can get to a place where your desire for alcohol does not overcome what you want to do with your life and what it means to take care of yourself. So you can decondition your desire and change how you think about alcohol. So there's a disclaimer that goes along with this show today. If you are an alcoholic or physically addicted to alcohol, then this is not a program for you. We strongly recommend that if you're physically addicted, you seek the advice of your physician or a treatment facility. But for those of you who are not in that place and just struggling with maybe thinking maybe you should cut back on how much you're drinking in the evenings or when you get really upset with the kids, take a listen. This is a good show. She's got some good tips for us.
Hello.
How are you doing today?
I am great, Sue. So happy to be here to talk to you.
What are you going to talk with us about today?
I want to talk about urges.
My favorite topic. Okay, you know what? I've heard this topic so many times, and I can never get enough of it because I keep needing to hear it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm anxious to hear how you describe this and what you have to teach our listeners today. So tell me a little bit about yourself and how you got to be a coach who specializes in urges of all things. I'm like, oh, good grief.
Oh, well, so I'm a stopover drinking coach. Hence the expertise with the urges.
Okay, wait.
Yeah.
I want you to explain that even, because I bet there's some people listening who just went, what? Yo, what? What the what? She's a what? She's, talk to me about the stop over drinking and how that's different than just like stop drinking.
Stop drinking. Okay. Well, so I help women who are finding themselves drinking more than they would like to.
Mm-hmm.
And they're just uncomfortable about it for various reasons. They don't like how it makes them feel the next day, and they have ambitions for their life. And alcohol just is getting in the way.
Yeah.
And that was my story in a big way. That was my
Wow.
story.
I know a lot of people like that. I have a lot of patients that are like that, and they struggle and they go to, they try all different kinds of things. And this idea about stopping over drinking without completely stopping or moderating, or even there being something in between being a full blown alcoholic and teetotaler is kind of a new concept. So,
Yeah. So along those lines, that's interesting what you just made me think of something. But a lot of times, like we have this stigma around alcohol. Either it's good and everyone's doing it, and if you can't drink normally, then something's wrong with you.
right.
So it's good or it's bad, and you have a problem.
Yeah.
So it's just we put it in like black and white categories, and that really isn't how it works. There's 50 shades of gray here.
Wow.
And alcohol really it isn't good or bad. It isn't right or wrong.
It's just a neutral circumstance,
Alcohol
isn't
is
it?
neutral. And the fact that you drank last night or think that you overdrank is also neutral.
Ah, wow. That's freeing, isn't it?
So freeing.
Wait. Back up. Tell
Yeah.
us about you and how you came to this, because I'm about ready to delve right into the meat of the conversation. We
Okay.
need to know how you found all of this.
Perfect. Okay. So I struggled with drinking myself. And I, in my opinion, overdrank for basically every single night. I drank a bottle of wine or more every night for over a decade.
Goodness gracious.
And I took a few breaks here and there, but honestly, this is why how to handle and manage an urge is so important to me. And I think that a missing piece that isn't focused on enough, because I would try and take a break. The willpower was not working for me.
You know what? I don't think you're alone in this. I think when I interview patients and talk with them about drinking, I think there's an awful lot of a bottle of wine a night women out there. I think
It's common.
it's common. Yeah.
Yeah. So I did that for 10 years, and I just got to a point where the last 5 of those years, it was really getting in my way. I was just not going anywhere with my life, and I had huge ambitions and nothing was getting done.
Mm.
And I even went through rehab. I
Goodness.
mean, it got so bad.
Wow.
At the time, and this was 6 years ago, but at the time, that was what I needed. And I didn't know about coaching. I knew about managing your mind, but I just was of the mindset that I think a lot of people are. I didn't realize there were other options. I thought that once you created this over desire for alcohol, that it was never going to go away. You just had to learn to live with it.
Yeah. Yeah. We're taught that.
You're absolutely taught that, and that it's black and white.
So, how did you go from rehab to learning about this through the coaching tools instead?
Okay, so after rehab, I went back to drinking.
Mm.
I did have some skills to manage it. I just did the best I could to not overdrink and not get to the point where I was really sick.
Yeah.
And so I was still functioning, but at a much lower level. And so I did that for a few more years. And then I saw an ad on Facebook about stop over drinking. And
And you went click.
I I I absolutely clicked on it. And you know what? I was up in the middle of the night scrolling because I couldn't sleep, because I overdrank and it interrupts your sleep patterns and gives
Right.
you anxiety. And so I just was open to anything.
Hmm.
Anything other than just using willpower. I just didn't want to quit. I was
Yeah.
like, I really, a lot of people are like, there was a time when this wasn't a problem and I could drink normally.
And you just wanted to get back to that.
Exactly. And I was like open to quitting altogether, but like, let's take it one step at a time, right?
Yeah. So you went through the stop over drinking problem with the life coach school
I did.
and it worked?
It worked. It worked.
That's amazing.
I worked at it for, you know what? It started working from the beginning. I mean, because anything that I was doing, and all along I was drinking less, but I'm to the point now where going from drinking every night, now I just drink maybe once a week.
It's really fascinating. Wow.
And I don't think about alcohol all the time.
That's the key thing, right?
That's all I thought about. I mean, especially when you say, well, I'm going to stop and I should stop thinking about this. And, and then your brain you focus on it even more.
Just keeps going.
Yeah.
So I love this idea that you have diminished the desire, because that goes against also what we're taught. We're taught in medical school, we're taught socially. So I'm super interested in hearing about how that's worked for you. I think you're the first person that I've talked to that has had this specific experience and been through this level of like, here's where I was and here where I am. And I think it's really inspiring that that's what you do now, is teach other women how to decrease their desire and manage over drinking and their urges. So cool. What a story.
Absolutely. So should we talk first about exactly what an urge is?
Yeah. Let's clarify. I bet people are going, urge, like, yeah, tell me what.
Okay. So really an urge is it's a vibration in your body. It's a feeling. And you could classify the feeling as a couple of different things, but it basically is desire.
Okay.
Or over desire. And so when you think of the word urge, it's a shortened version of urgency.
Oh, yeah, of course.
And so it's like this urgency. You have your brain. Our brains are just wired so that when we get that reward from the alcohol, that is very important. And even though in today's society it isn't, our brain doesn't know the difference. And
Our brain just thinks, oh, that's a dopamine hit. I love this. I have to have it.
Just as important as food.
Wow.
It doesn't know the difference. And in fact, the dopamine is so much higher from alcohol than from food in a lot of cases, that the desire is just, to me, that's just that much more urgent. It's seeking that out. And so an urge is just over desire.
Okay.
And it's a natural thing that our brain creates. And it just thinks it's important. Our lower brain thinks it's important.
So I'm kind of curious, because the title of our talk today is about how to allow an urge. Like, why, if that urgency is so uncomfortable, would I ever want to allow it? Like, talk with me about that.
Well, let's talk about that, because actually there's something worse than allowing it, but the people just don't realize.
Tell me.
It's actually, you get a stronger sensation from resisting it.
Huh.
So I want to back up just right, because we are going to talk about that. But there are 4 things that you can do in response to an urge.
Okay. Tell me 4 things.
4 things really quickly. So we either resist it.
Okay.
We react to it. So resisting would be pushing against it and white knuckling it.
Okay. I like that term. That describes it really well. The white knuckling, like, I'm just going to willpower through this.
And then reacting to it would be to drink.
Okay.
To it. Okay. We all know how that goes.
Yeah.
And then avoiding it might be like distracting yourself. Like, well, I'll just be busy and do something else.
Okay.
And that works for a time, but like, you're really not dealing with the underlying issues.
You're not addressing the urge at it. So that doesn't do anything to decrease the desire.
No, it doesn't.
Okay. So 4 things you can allow, which is what we're going to talk about today. Resist, respond. Is that what it was?
React or respond.
Mm-hmm. And then avoid. Okay. Got it.
So when you were saying, well, it sounds so horrible to have to allow this urge, why would I want to allow it? Resisting it or using willpower and white knuckling it actually intensifies the feeling.
Interesting.
And it also makes it reinforces the habit that much more.
Wow.
Because I know this is like, I love learning about this and sharing this with people, because when we resist something and then we eventually give into it, then your brain learns that. really like instantly your lower brain is onto that and your brain is wired to just
It's like that Pavlov reward center, the dog thing where they ring the bell and they salivate for the food. It's
correct.
that you're training your brain to respond to the trigger.
Mhm.
Huh.
Yeah, and then your brain like just learns all of the different thoughts that get you to drink that eventually you give into.
That sounds horrible.
And it relegates our brains are this we're actually our brains are brilliant. It wants to be efficient. And using the higher part of your brain takes a lot of energy. And relegating those thoughts that come easy and that get the reward, it will relegate to the lower brain.
The subconscious, like just wired,
Ex-
like you don't have to think about it.
Don't even have to think about it.
Like driving to work, it's just like in there and your brain's going to do it on autopilot.
Right. And you don't even, you're like, oh, I didn't even, it wasn't even, how did I even get here to work? Or how did I get home? You weren't really thinking about it.
How did I get here to drinking a whole bottle of wine?
Exactly. Yeah,
It's the same thing, really.
it is. It's the same thing.
And the fact that you can rewire that is amazing. That's encouraging.
It is so encouraging. This was when I learned this, that it just was one sentence that if you can, just like you have created over desire,
Mhm.
so you've conditioned it, you can decondition it. And that part, you can decondition it, was just like, Sue, when I heard this, a weight came off my shoulders.
Oh,
And I just said to myself, I'm going to do this until I figure it out
wow.
because this makes sense.
And then you did it. And now you're an example for everybody of what's possible.
Exactly. Yes.
It's really cool.
It's been transformational. So those are the 4 things that we do. And then we can talk about how are you going to allow that? And it's not going to be as terrible as resisting it.
Yeah, I'm really curious about this because, I've, being in life coaching, and I think we've had a couple of people on the show where we've talked a little bit about allowing urges for different things, overeating and stuff, but everybody describes it a little bit differently. And like I said at the beginning, this is one of those things that I can't hear enough because I'm still practicing and I'm still learning and I'm still working on it, right?
Exactly.
So tell me your version of like, how have you done it so that it works for you?
And I love what you said about like this is good for whether you're allowing an urge for food. I mean, it's the same principle, whether it's for food, for smoking, to stop biting your nails, to shopping, whatever that.
Sex, drugs, alcohol, the whole thing, all of it.
It works the same in the brain. So for those listeners that are working on whatever their thing is, everyone has their thing.
Yep.
Okay. So the first step is commitment. And I put this first. Not everyone does, but this is so key because for me, like if I wasn't committed to allowing the urge, I ended up resisting and I wasn't willing. I let the voices, the competing sentences in my brain, I entertained those thoughts of, well, is it really that important? Just one won't hurt. Maybe tomorrow. Just that it's a negotiation, the negotiation in your head. So if you can just quiet that negotiation up front, then you can get to allowing what's really underneath that.
Okay. So the commitment is to pay less attention to those thoughts or what? What's the commitment?
It's a commitment to feeling the feeling that you're avoiding, actually. So there a lot of times there's even actually another feeling other than just the urge for alcohol. Maybe it's just the feeling of willing to be restless, or you're bored, or you're just stressed and you've had a difficult day.
So it's a commitment to feeling the negative feelings that we all feel.
Correct.
Interesting.
And knowing that the promise is that once you master this, it will only take 5 to 10 minutes and the urge will be gone.
That's all you have to get through is like 5 or 10 minutes, 5 minutes. And then the energy, that urge or that anxiety or that whatever you're feeling will dissipate if you allow it.
You allow it.
That's so much shorter than resisting. Like resisting goes on for days,
Mm-hmm.
right?
It does. Yeah, I would wake up. I remember I remember waking up the next day after white knuckling a whole night and thinking, "Oh, I'm drinking tonight because that sucked."
That was
I
terrible.
was
Yeah.
thinking about it in the morning, and I've heard people say, "Oh, well, if you kinda just get through that evening, the next day you're always glad you didn't drink."
And that's not always
It's
true.
not that was a lie for me.
Interesting. You know what? I've never really had somebody articulate that before, but I think a lot of people feel that way. Yeah.
Well, and I think it goes back to that, like, you had that restlessness, you had that discomfort, and it hasn't gone away. You haven't processed anything at all, and you wake up with it.
It's still there. So tell us how to process it. Tell us what that looks like for you.
So, after you've committed to the feeling that you're gonna feel, then you're gonna become the watcher.
Yep, I like this technique.
And what you want to do in becoming the watcher is realize that you are not the urge, and the urge is not you. It's just a feeling, it's a vibration in your body,
And we are separate from it.
and you're separate from it. So when you become the watcher, you go into your higher brain, and then you actually also go into your body. So you kind of actually get out of your head, but you're using your higher brain and not your lower brain to do this.
But you get out of like the running thought dialogue, the narrative that's going on. You can like
Yeah,
step back and watch it like a movie happening and be like, okay, I'm in my body. I'm not in my thoughts.
correct. So it does quiet down that chatter and will actually even go away as you drop below your chin and get into your body and notice what you're feeling. You don't have to know what the feeling is, but you can describe it. Where are you tight?
Oh, you get really specific in the body parts.
Where are you feeling it? What does it feel like? Is it fast or slow? Is it moving? Does it have a color? Does it have a shape?
Interesting. Hmm.
And as you go through each of those things to watch it and then notice if it's changing, it's almost like a meditation
Right.
because you might notice that then you start thinking again.
Uh-huh.
And then when you catch yourself thinking about mind chatter and drinking, then just refocus yourself, bring yourself back into your body, focus. And then one way to do it with meditation, of course, is to focus on your breath. So you could focus on taking some deep breaths,
Oh, it's like that. That's really
brings you
cleansing.
back into your body, and then ask yourself again, okay, well, where is it now? What is it doing? And be willing to just follow it and sit with it and open. And that really is an opening up to it.
Cool.
So, and then one other thing I would like to say is, and this is a great visual, is I like to picture that urge wrapped in a bubble.
Okay.
So it's in me, but it isn't, I feel protected from it.
It's not throughout you. You've got it a boundary around it.
I have a boundary around it. I wrap it in a bubble and hold it in a place of peace.
Oh, wow. This does not sound very peaceful. So, yeah, all this chatter and, negative emotions and stuff. That's okay. That's cool. I've never heard that before. So wrap it in a bubble and then hold it in a place of peace.
Yeah. And if that sounds, your reaction to that was really interesting because that's resistance. That's resistance coming up to it that, oh, how could that be
Yeah.
peaceful?
Yeah. Yeah.
And so anytime that we're resisting something, it makes it that much stronger. And the vibration, I think, changes and gets maybe quicker and is unsettling. And it adds, so anytime we resist an emotion, we add suffering to our human.
Oh, wait. Say that again.
Yeah.
That's tweetable right there. That's a tweet.
This one's key. We are all humans. And we all feel all of the array of emotions. And when you resist the negative emotion, that is suffering.
Wow.
So you're adding suffering to your pain. So if you think of it as pain,
Yep.
negative emotion is pain, resistance adds suffering to your pain.
Golly, this is so powerful.
And so if you do wrap it in that bubble and hold it in a place of peace, then that just helps. Like, it's such a visual for not resisting.
You know what? I bet this could actually help people with chronic pain too.
Oh, absolutely.
I hadn't thought of that, and the idea about urges being related at all to the perception of pain within the body, but this idea of being able to put a boundary around it and hold it in a place of peace and to decrease the resistance and the suffering that may be compounding it, that's kind of mind-blowing right there. That's really cool. That may be something that I bring forward into my practice, so thank you.
Great. You're welcome. Yeah.
Cool. Okay, so if you had to like give us a bottom line or a takeaway for our audience, first of all, thank you. This has been really a lot of information and really great conversation with you today. Some really great tools that I hadn't heard of or thought of before. And I know it's going to help a lot of our listeners. What would you say is like the sum? What would you leave them with?
Okay. This is key. Because this is the other part to it. This is the other side to it, is to give yourself grace during this process.
Grace.
Allow grace. You deserve it.
Oh man, because so many of us don't feel like that. And that being kind, that grace, that compassion, that's such a powerful word.
Self-compassion. And what that looks like is not judging yourself.
Huh.
And that can be something that's something I've evolved with and worked on myself, because the next day, like, let's say you did end up drinking because maybe you didn't allow the urge properly, because you're figuring this out at first, right? And so when you judge yourself, you're not being curious and looking at what went wrong. Or what could I do differently? You're just being hard on yourself.
Beating yourself up.
Yeah. So I gave myself permission to I remind myself the next day, if I drank and I didn't want to, or I drank too much, I just tell myself that's a circumstance. It's neutral. It isn't something that I need to beat myself up over. And I just give myself that grace that, how can I learn from this?
Oh, wow. So powerful. That's so strong. Whew. All right. Well, Penny, thank you for being here today.
You are welcome. Oh, this is just such a big topic for me.
Yeah.
Because I was just miserable.
I can see your vulnerability. I mean, this is very courageous. It's a very brave thing that you've done, and like showing your heart and what you've been through. And I know that hasn't been easy, but so valuable to the people listening. And I just want to thank you so much for being willing to share yourself with others, to give them the encouragement they need to hear about grace and allowing and falling forward in this.
Absolutely. Yes. Falling forward. And you're not alone. You're not alone. You're human. And yeah, other women are struggling too. And it's okay. You're normal. Your brain is healthy.
And it's doing what it's supposed to. It's okay.
Yeah.
So our listeners know that they can find you through virtuosacoaching.com, because you're one of my amazing coaches. But do you have any other ways that they can reach out to you or hear more about your information?
Yes, absolutely. The best way to find me is on Facebook. I have a coaching page, a business page, Penny Gambill Coaching.
Awesome.
And that's it. Super simple.
We'll make sure we put that in the notes. And yeah, thank you so much for joining us today. Have a wonderful weekend.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Sue.
You're welcome. All right. So what I've shown you today, I've shown you options. Like, there are different ways for us to think about. There is a way for you to learn a skill set of identifying and allowing urges, in a way to decondition that subconscious brain of ours that just kind of goes on autopilot. And if this sounds like a good thing for you, then I'd encourage you to try it and practice it. Reach out to Penny. See if she can encourage you and help you on your journey. And above all, we've talked about giving yourself grace. Give yourself grace and compassion. Change takes time, and it's the rare person that does it overnight. This whole podcast is about transforming into the best version of yourself, into the virtuoso version of yourself. And that is something that we are continually evolving. So give yourself grace and patience. All right, now my favorite part of the show is what we're listening to and reading. And Patty brought some really great things for y'all this week. She is listening to Michael Franti, The Sound of Sunshine. And you know what? I love this artist, and I had actually heard this song before, but really hadn't explored the rest of his catalog. I love his tone and his just his energy, his light. And so I would encourage you to check him out. We'll put some links for you in the notes for the podcast. She's reading Mating in Captivity by Esther Perel. That's Perel, Esther Perel. Fascinating book. And The Last Dance is what she's watching. It's, of course, the Michael Jordan documentary. So hopefully that gives you some ideas about things to listen to and read this week. Next week, I'm doing another coaching interview with Ludmila Woodruff. She is going to be teaching about emotional, mental, and physical fitness in motherhood, or in other words, how not to go grab a glass of wine when you want to kill your kids in COVID captivity. She's hilarious. She's actually a stand-up comedian too. She had me laughing so hard, y'all. I have not laughed that hard in a long time. So you're definitely going to want to tune in next week. And thanks for listening this week. Have a wonderful week. My virtuoses, love always, Sue. And I will see you next week in episode 30. Bye, y'all.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Becoming Virtuosa. If you want to find out more, come check out virtuosacoaching.com. That's virtuosa with an A, coaching.com. See you next week.